Welcome to Cheating Tales Lab. We're grateful you've chosen to join us today. Tell us, which part of the world are you watching from? Big city? Small town? Country? We'd love to know. Now, let's dive into today's story. Chapter 1. Foundations. The Keller family vacation home stood like a sentinel on the bluffs of Lake Michigan, its weathered cedar siding and panoramic windows reflecting 50 years of family history. Desmond Keller ran his hand along the hand-carved mantelpiece, feeling the grooves his grandfather had meticulously created decades ago. At 45, Des had the bearing of a man who commanded respect without asking for it. Salt and pepper hair swept back from a face that revealed little but observed everything. Taking inventory again? Vanessa's voice carried from the doorway, a teasing lilt masking something harder beneath. His wife of 17 years leaned against the door frame, her auburn hair catching the evening light. At 42, she still turned heads, a fact she'd been leveraging more frequently at charity events and dinner parties. Just appreciating craftsmanship, Des replied, his voice even. Something that's becoming rare these days. The sound of car doors slamming announced the arrival of the rest of the extended family for their annual 2-week summer gathering. Tradition dictated that Des greet them at the door, but this year felt different. The subtle shifts in how they treated him hadn't gone unnoticed. Preston Woodruff was first through the door, his expansive personality filling the room before his imposing frame did. There he is, Preston boomed, clapping Des on the shoulder with unnecessary force. The silent partner. He laughed at his own joke, exchanging glances with Vanessa. Behind Preston came his wife Camille, Vanessa's younger sister, their teenage twins Olivia and Samuel, and finally, the newest addition to their gatherings, Nathaniel Donovan, introduced as Preston's business consultant, but whose lingering looks at Vanessa told a different story. Beautiful as always, Des, Nathaniel said, gesturing around the lake house while his eyes fell on Vanessa. You're a lucky man to have all this. Des nodded, noting how Vanessa unconsciously touched her hair when Nathaniel spoke. Luck had nothing to do with it, Nate. That evening, as they gathered for dinner on the sprawling deck overlooking the water, Des observed the dynamics around the table. Preston dominated the conversation, speaking about financial difficulties at their family lumber business, a business Des had quietly kept afloat with strategic investments over the years. We really need to discuss the future of this place, Preston announced after his third glass of wine. Maintenance costs are rising, and some of us are carrying more weight than others. Camille nodded earnestly. It's becoming a burden rather than a joy. Des said nothing, merely sipping his whiskey as he caught Nathaniel's hand brushing against Vanessa's under the table. He'd known about the affair for 3 months, but had said nothing. Des Keller wasn't a man who played his cards before the right moment. What none of them knew, what Des had never corrected them on, was that the vacation home wasn't family property at all. 10 years ago, when Vanessa's parents faced bankruptcy, Des had purchased the property outright, allowing them the dignity of pretending it remained in the family trust. Only Des's name was on the deed, a fact carefully concealed in the family mythology about their shared inheritance. Later that night, as moonlight spilled across their bedroom, Vanessa slipped into bed beside him, smelling of expensive perfume and someone else's cologne. Preston thinks we should consider selling, she whispered, not touching him. The upkeep is becoming too much. Des turned to look at his wife, seeing the careful calculation behind her eyes. Is that what Preston thinks? Or is that what you and Nathaniel have discussed? The flash of panic across her face was brief, but unmistakable. I don't know what you're implying. I'm not implying anything, Vanessa. I'm simply wondering when my wife started making property decisions with her lover instead of her husband. The silence between them stretched like a chasm. Finally, Vanessa spoke, her voice brittle. You've changed, Des. You're never home, always working on your mysterious projects. What did you expect? Des turned away, allowing her to believe she'd won this small skirmish. I expect loyalty, but I've learned not to be surprised by its absence. As his wife feigned sleep beside him, Des stared at the ceiling, mentally reviewing the documentation tucked away in his safe. Everything was in order. The stage was set for what would come next. Chapter 2. Fractures. Morning fog clung to the lake as Des jogged along the private shoreline, his mind clearer with each pounding step on the wet sand. 10 miles every morning, regardless of weather or circumstance. Discipline was the foundation of everything Des had built. His phone vibrated with a text. Confirmed. All surveillance in place. R. Russell Hayes had been Des's closest friend since their military days, the only person Des trusted implicitly. When Des first suspected Vanessa's infidelity, it was Russell who had quietly installed the monitoring systems throughout the lake house and Vanessa's car. Back at the house, Des showered and dressed, listening to the sounds of the family stirring. He descended to find Preston and Nathaniel huddled over coffee and papers at the kitchen island, conversation stopping abruptly at his entrance. "Don't let me interrupt business," Des said, pouring himself coffee. "Though I wasn't aware lumber consulting required such secrecy." Preston cleared his throat. "Actually, Nate's been helping me explore some investment opportunities. Diversification, you know." "Smart," Des nodded. "Though investment advice from someone who declared bankruptcy twice seems questionable." Nathaniel stiffened. "Ancient history. Markets change." "People rarely do," Des countered, leaving them to their whispers. Outside, he found Vanessa organizing a boating expedition with Camille and the twins. She barely acknowledged him, but Des noticed how her phone remained clutched in her hand, screen angled away. "Coming with us, Des?" Camille asked, her tone suggesting she hoped otherwise. "Not today. I have calls." Des smiled at his niece and nephew. "Though I'd like Olivia and Samuel to join me for dinner in town tonight. I've been promising to show them the restoration project at the lighthouse." The twins brightened. They'd always gravitated toward their uncle's calm presence over their father's bombastic personality. "They have plans with their father," Vanessa interjected quickly. Des maintained his smile. "Preston mentioned he had a meeting with potential investors tonight. I already confirmed with him." Vanessa's expression tightened, recognizing the implied message. "I know more than you think I do." That evening, as Des drove the twins to dinner, he used the opportunity to learn what they knew. "Your parents seem tense this trip," he observed casually. 16-year-old Samuel exchanged glances with his sister. "Dad's always stressed about money lately. Says the family needs to liquidate underperforming assets." Olivia, more perceptive at 17, studied her uncle. "Mom says Aunt Vanessa is unhappy. That you work too much." Des nodded thoughtfully. "And what do you think?" "I think adults complicate things," Olivia answered. "Dad talks about family legacy but treats you like an outsider. It's gross." "Yeah," Samuel agreed. "And that Nate guy is always hanging around Aunt Vanessa. Dad treats him like he's family already." Des kept his expression neutral while internally confirming what he'd suspected. The conspiracy ran through the entire adult contingent. Only the children remained honest. After dropping the twins at the house later, Des parked down the road and made a call. "Diana, I need you to accelerate the timeline. They're moving faster than anticipated." Diana Powell, Des's attorney for 15 years, understood immediately. "The papers are ready. We can execute tomorrow if needed." "Do it," Des decided. "And activate the financial protocols we discussed." The next morning, tensions simmered as Preston called an emergency family meeting in the great room. Des arrived last, noting how they'd positioned themselves. Preston standing at the head of the room, Vanessa and Camille on one sofa, Nathaniel lurking by the fireplace. The twins had been conveniently sent into town. "We need to discuss the future of this property," Preston began without preamble. "Maintenance costs have doubled in the past 5 years. Property taxes are crushing us." Des leaned against the doorframe. "Us?" Preston faltered momentarily. "The family, Des. We're all in this together." "Interesting perspective," Des remarked. "Please, continue." Preston regained his momentum. "We've analyzed the financial burden. Some family members contribute substantially more than others." "By some, you mean me," Des clarified. "You've been generous," Camille interjected, her smile not reaching her eyes. "But we can't expect you to carry us forever." "So what's your proposal?" Des asked, though he already knew. "We think it's time to sell," Preston announced. "Split the proceeds according to contribution and family standing." Des nodded slowly. "And how have you calculated my contribution?" Vanessa spoke up, her voice cool. "You've paid for renovations and some maintenance. But this has been family property for generations before you married in." "I see." Des's tone betrayed nothing. "And this decision requires unanimous consent." "We're prepared to vote," Preston declared, as has been family tradition. Des suppressed a smile. There had never been any such tradition. They were making rules to justify theft. "Then let's vote," Des agreed. Chapter 3, Betrayal. The vacation home's great room had witnessed countless family moments, Christmas gatherings, anniversary celebrations, children's milestones, but never had it held such naked avarice as it did now. Sunlight streamed through the windows, casting long shadows across the antique rug that Des's grandfather had brought back from Morocco. "I'll start the voting," Preston announced with the confidence of someone who'd already counted his victory. "I vote that we sell the property and distribute proceeds based on bloodline ownership, with consideration for maintenance contributions." "I second that," Camille added quickly. Des remained silent, watching the performance unfold. "Nate, you're practically family now. Your thoughts?" Preston turned to Nathaniel, dropping any pretense about his role. Nathaniel cleared his throat. "I think it's reasonable. Property values in this area are peaking. Financially speaking, it's the prudent move." The pretense that Nathaniel was merely a business consultant had evaporated. His position in this family vote confirmed everything Des had suspected about his relationship with Vanessa and his influence over the family's finances. "So that's 3 votes for selling," Preston tallied. "Des, I vote we keep it," Des said simply. Preston's smile was condescending. "That's 1 vote against 3. But let's hear from Vanessa to make it official." All eyes turned to Des's wife. She met his gaze briefly before looking away, her decision already made. "I vote we sell," she said firmly. "It's time for change." Preston clapped his hands together. "Then it's settled. 4-1. The lake house will be listed next week." "I'm afraid there's been a misunderstanding," Des said quietly. "No misunderstanding," Preston countered. "You've been outvoted. Democracy in action, brother-in-law." "You can't vote on something you don't own," Des replied, his voice level. The room went silent. "What are you talking about?" Vanessa demanded. "This has been in my family for generations." "It was," Des acknowledged. "Until your parents faced bankruptcy a decade ago. They were going to lose it to creditors, so I purchased it outright. Your parents asked me to keep that arrangement private to preserve family dignity." "You're lying," Camille accused, but uncertainty had crept into her voice. "The deed is in my name alone," Des continued. "There is no family ownership. There never was, not for the past 10 years. He doesn't contribute." Preston sputtered, face reddening. "He's just trying to save his place here." Des smiled thinly. "I don't contribute. I've paid every tax bill, every insurance premium, every renovation cost for a decade. I funded the new dock you insisted on, Preston. I covered the roof replacement last year. I even paid off the lumber company's loans when the bank was ready to foreclose, another fact your parents kept quiet, Vanessa." The blood drained from Preston's face. "You can't prove any of this." "I don't need to prove it to you," Des replied. "Only to the county recorder's office and the bank. Both already have all relevant documentation." Vanessa stood, trembling with anger. "If what you're saying is true, you've lied to me for years." "Omission isn't lying, Vanessa. I respected your parents' wishes, just as you've respected your marriage vows." Des raised an eyebrow. "But since we're voting on things we have no right to decide, let me be clear. I vote that everyone in this room, except me, leaves the property immediately." "You can't kick us out," Preston shouted. "We have rights." "As what? Guests?" Des shook his head. "I've been extraordinarily generous with my hospitality. That ends today." Vanessa approached him, her voice lowered. "Des, let's talk privately about this. We can work something out." "There's nothing to discuss," Des replied. "Pack your things." "You're bluffing," Preston insisted, though sweat had appeared on his brow. "This is just a pathetic attempt to." "He doesn't contribute," Des interrupted, quoting Preston's earlier statement. "That's what you said, right? While conspiring to steal my property." "We weren't," Camille began. "Good riddance." Vanessa suddenly spat, dropping her conciliatory act. "You've been checked out of this marriage for years. Living with you is like living with a ghost." The naked hostility in her voice silenced the room. Des simply nodded, as if her outburst had confirmed something. "You have 2 hours," he said calmly. "Anything left behind will be considered abandoned property." "This isn't over," Preston threatened as Des walked toward the door. Des paused. "You're right about that." He walked out of the house, down to the shore where his grandfather had taught him to skip stones decades ago. Behind him, he could hear the angry voices, the accusations, the hasty packing. His phone buzzed with a text from Russell, all recording. "Proceeding to next phase?" "Yes," Des replied. Activate everything. Later, as the family loaded their vehicles, casting venomous glances his way, Des stood on the porch watching. Vanessa approached him last, her suitcase rolling behind her. 17 years, and this is how you end it? She demanded. I didn't end anything, Vanessa. You did that the first time you welcomed Nathaniel into our bed. Her eyes widened. You knew? I know everything, Des said softly. I always have. The difference is, now everyone else will too. What does that mean? Alarm tinged her voice. Des just smiled. Safe travels. As the cars disappeared down the long driveway, Des returned to the empty house. He poured himself a whiskey and made a call. Hank. Des Keller. I need you to change all the locks and security codes at the lake house. Yes, effective immediately. And Hank, if anyone from the family contacts you for access, inform them that the sole owner has revoked all guest privileges indefinitely. The property manager's confusion was evident. But I thought the family co-owned. A common misconception, Des replied. One that's been corrected today. That night, alone in the house for the first time in years, Des slept better than he had in decades, lulled by the sound of waves against the shore and the knowledge that justice, like revenge, was best served cold. Chapter 4, Aftermath. The morning after the family's exodus, Des awoke to a barrage of missed calls and texts. He ignored them all, instead making a single call to Diana Powell. They've been ejected, he informed his attorney. Proceed with Phase 2. Already in motion, Diana confirmed. The bank froze all the accounts at 6 a.m. The disclosure packets will be delivered to each target by noon. Des made his way downstairs, appreciating the silence that had replaced the constant din of family politics. He made coffee and carried it out to the deck, where Russell Hayes was waiting, his military bearing evident even in civilian clothes. Perimeter security is upgraded, Russell reported without preamble. New cameras, motion sensors, upgraded locks. Nobody gets in without you knowing. Des nodded. And our friends. Scattered, as expected. Preston and Camille are at their downtown Chicago condo. Nathaniel checked into the Langham Hotel, premium suite, despite his supposed financial constraints. And Vanessa, Russell hesitated, is with him, Des finished. I expected nothing less. Russell studied his friend. You've planned for this moment for years. How does it feel now that it's in motion? Des considered the question as he looked out over the lake. Like watching a bullet you've fired travel toward its target. The outcome is inevitable, but the impact hasn't yet been felt. The twins called, Russell mentioned. They're confused. A flicker of genuine emotion crossed Des's face. They're innocent in this. I've arranged for them to stay with their grandparents in Boston. Private schooling is already paid for. The only mercy you're showing, Russell observed. They're children, Des replied. Everyone else made their choices. By mid-morning, Des's phone was buzzing constantly. He finally answered when Diana's number appeared. The packages have been delivered, she reported. Preston received his at his office. Vanessa and Nathaniel received theirs at the hotel. Camille's was sent to their home. And the financial measures? Complete. As of 8 this morning, Preston has been removed from all company accounts. The board received the documentation about his embezzlement. His access cards are deactivated. When he tried to withdraw cash 20 minutes ago, his personal accounts were already frozen. Des permitted himself a small smile. And the property manager? Called them all as instructed. I believe you'll find the recording satisfying. Des hung up and opened his laptop, clicking on the file Russell had sent. The recorded call began to play. Mrs. Keller? Hank Larson from Michigan Lakeshore Properties. I'm calling regarding the vacation home. Yes, I understand your confusion, but there's been a change. The sole owner has revoked all guest privileges effective immediately. Vanessa's voice rose in pitch. There must be some mistake. That property has been in my family for. No mistake, ma'am. I have the deed right here, registered solely to Desmond Keller since 2014. He left instructions that if anyone attempts to access the property, they'll be charged with trespassing. He left a name for me to provide if there were any questions. What name? Preston's voice had joined the call. Desmond Keller, Hank replied. He said you'd understand the implications. The line went dead. Des closed the laptop, satisfaction coursing through him. Phase 2 was underway. The systematic dismantling of the financial safety nets his in-laws had taken for granted. For years, Des had quietly maintained control of the family lumber business through shell companies, preventing Preston's mismanagement from destroying it. Now that protection was removed, his phone rang again. Vanessa. After a moment's consideration, Des answered. How dare you? She hissed without preamble. You've humiliated me, thrown me out of my family home. Not yours, Des interrupted calmly. Never was. I'm entitled to half of everything in a divorce, Des. You can't just. Actually, I can, Des corrected her. The prenuptial agreement you signed specified that any property purchased to preserve family assets remains with the purchaser. You were so eager to marry the boring businessman your parents approved of, you didn't read the fine print. Silence. Then, no judge will uphold that. 3 already have, in similar cases I've handled for clients, Des replied. Diana has the precedents ready. What do you want? Vanessa's voice had shifted to negotiation. Nothing from you. Des answered truthfully. Not anymore. This is about Nate, isn't it? You're jealous. Des laughed, genuinely amused. Jealous of a 2-time bankrupt who's sleeping with my wife for access to money he thinks she has? No, Vanessa. This isn't about jealousy. It's about consequences. What did you send Preston? Vanessa demanded, changing tactics. He's locked himself in the bathroom after opening your package. Just documentation, Des said mildly. Bank records showing his embezzlement from the lumber company. Recordings of his conversations with Nathaniel about selling company assets without board approval. The usual. You're destroying our family, Vanessa accused. Your family destroyed itself, Des corrected. I'm merely removing the financial scaffolding that's been hiding that fact. After hanging up, Des received a text from Russell. They're scrambling. Preston tried accessing his offshore account. Found it empty. Good, Des replied. Proceed with phase 3 tomorrow. That night, Des sat in his grandfather's old leather chair, reviewing the documentation Diana had prepared years ago when he first suspected Vanessa's infidelity. It wasn't just about the affair. It was the systematic way his in-laws had exploited his generosity while excluding him from family decisions. The way they'd made him an outsider while using his money to maintain their lifestyle. Des had never been the passionate type. His revenge wasn't born of hot anger, but cold calculation. Each move designed not just to hurt, but to systematically dismantle the illusions they'd built around themselves. Tomorrow would bring phase 3, public exposure. Chapter 5, Unraveling. The headline broke at 7 a.m. Woodruff Lumber faces federal investigation. CEO Preston Woodruff accused of embezzlement. Des read the article with his morning coffee, noting how carefully the reporter had followed the narrative provided in the anonymous tip. By 8 a.m., Preston's name was trending on local business news. By 9 a.m., the lumber company's stock had dropped 15%. Diana called mid-morning. The board has called an emergency meeting. Preston has been suspended pending investigation. And the family trust? Frozen by the court as requested. The evidence was compelling enough for an immediate injunction. Des nodded to himself. Any movement from Nathaniel? Checked out of the hotel at dawn. Used his emergency credit card, the only one not yet frozen. He's moving fast. Not fast enough, Des replied. Keep me updated. The systematic dismantling of the Woodruff family's financial facade had been meticulously planned over 3 years. Des had documented every instance of Preston's financial misconduct, every misappropriation of company funds, every falsified report to shareholders. Not to blackmail. Des had no interest in control or money, but to ensure that when the house of cards fell, it would collapse completely. His phone chimed with a text from an unknown number. You've made your point. Let's talk. NRD. Nathaniel Richard Donovan was reaching out directly. Interesting. Nothing to discuss, Des replied. The response came quickly. I didn't know about the property. She lied to me too. Des almost smiled at the transparent attempt to create distance between himself and Vanessa. Noted, he texted back, offering nothing more. By afternoon, Des received the call he'd been expecting from Olivia. Uncle Des. His niece's voice was small, confused. What's happening? Dad won't talk to us, and Mom's been crying all day. They sent us to Grandma's house. Des softened his tone. There's been some trouble with your dad's business, Olivia, and some family disagreements. It's complicated. Are you and Aunt Vanessa getting divorced? Yes, Des answered honestly. But that has nothing to do with you or Samuel. You're still my family. Dad says you're trying to destroy him, Olivia said tentatively. Your father made some bad decisions, Des explained. Sometimes consequences feel like attacks when they're really just the natural result of our choices. After reassuring his niece and promising to call again soon, Des checked his surveillance feed. As expected, a familiar car was approaching the lake house, Vanessa's BMW. Des sent a quick text to Russell, who confirmed he was in position, then went to the deck to wait. Minutes later, Vanessa appeared, using her old key, which no longer worked on the new locks. "You changed the locks?" she called out, spotting him on the deck. "Of course," Des replied. "This is no longer your home." Vanessa looked different already, the carefully maintained facade of contented wealth replaced by genuine stress. "We need to talk, Des. In person. Alone." "We're talking now," Des observed. "And we are alone. You've frozen all my accounts," she accused, approaching the deck stairs. "I can't even buy groceries." "You have access to the household account," Des corrected. $10,000, as stipulated in the prenup for transitional expenses. The rest awaits the divorce settlement. Preston is being questioned by federal investigators. Vanessa's composure cracked. "Camille called me sobbing that they might lose their house." "How could you do this?" Des regarded his wife calmly. "I didn't embezzle company funds, Vanessa. Preston did. I simply stopped covering for him." "You knew?" "All this time. I've known everything," Des said simply. "Your affair with Nathaniel. Preston's financial schemes. The plans to force me out of the lake house. The conversations about divorcing me once you secured what assets you could." Vanessa paled. "You had no right to spy on us." "Interesting moral line to draw," Des noted. "Betrayal is acceptable, but surveillance isn't." "What do you want from me?" Vanessa demanded, her voice breaking. "Nothing," Des answered truthfully. "This isn't a negotiation, Vanessa. It's a consequence." "Nate's left me," she admitted suddenly, tears forming. "Once the accounts were frozen, he was gone by morning. I have nowhere to go." "That was predictable," Des replied without sympathy. "He wanted your money, not you. Unfortunately for him, it was never your money to begin with." Vanessa's expression hardened. "You cold bastard. You never loved me, did you?" "I loved you completely," Des corrected her, his voice softening momentarily. "Which is why your betrayal warranted this response." "I'll fight you," Vanessa threatened. "I'll tell everyone what a monster you are." Des simply nodded toward the security camera capturing their conversation. "Feel free. The court appreciates documented evidence." As Vanessa stormed back to her car, Des received another text from Diana. "Federal agents have seized Nathaniel's passport at O'Hare." The offshore account transfers triggered an automatic alert. Everything was proceeding exactly as planned. Phase 3 was almost complete. The public unraveling of the carefully constructed images that Preston, Camille, Vanessa, and Nathaniel had created. Next would come the final phase, permanent severance. Chapter 6, Consequences. The Lake County Courthouse buzzed with reporters as Des arrived for the emergency injunction hearing. Diana Powell met him on the steps, her tailored suit and confident demeanor marking her as the high-powered attorney she was. "Preston's legal team is requesting a continuance," she informed Des as they climbed the steps. "Judge Mendelson is unlikely to grant it given the evidence." "And Vanessa?" "Filed an emergency petition for spousal support this morning. It's been assigned to Judge Keating." Des nodded, recognizing the name. "He was at Harvard with you, correct?" Diana's smile was slight. "He understands the sanctity of contracts, including prenuptial agreements." Inside, the courtroom was already crowded. Preston sat with his attorneys, his once commanding presence diminished by 3 days without sleep. Beside him, Camille looked shell-shocked, her designer outfit replaced by something hastily purchased off the rack. Vanessa sat across the aisle, alone, Nathaniel conspicuously absent. When she saw Des, her expression flashed between hatred and desperation. Judge Mendelson entered, and the proceedings began. Preston's attorney argued passionately that the freeze on assets was preventing his client from mounting an adequate defense against these outrageous and baseless accusations. Diana countered with methodical precision, presenting documentation of wire transfers, falsified board minutes, and recorded conversations in which Preston explicitly discussed hiding assets from shareholders. "Your Honor," Diana concluded, "Mr. Woodruff has systematically diverted company funds to personal use while misleading shareholders about the company's financial health. The asset freeze is necessary to prevent further dissipation of funds that rightfully belong to the company and its shareholders. The judge reviewed the evidence, his expression growing increasingly grave. The court finds sufficient evidence to maintain the freeze pending full investigation. Mr. Woodruff, you are ordered to surrender your passport to the court clerk by 5 p.m. today. Preston slumped in his chair as his attorney whispered urgently in his ear. As they exited the courtroom, Vanessa intercepted Des. You've gotten what you wanted, she hissed. Preston is ruined. Nathaniel is being investigated. I'm humiliated. Isn't that enough? Des regarded her calmly. It would be, if this were about wanting something. It's not. Then what is it about? Vanessa demanded. Correction, Des replied. Some people only learn through consequences. The twins called me, Vanessa said, changing tactics. They miss their Uncle Des. Are you punishing them too? Their college funds remain untouched, Des informed her, as does the trust one established for their future. They're innocent in this. Vanessa's eyes narrowed. More secrets you kept. Protections I created, Des corrected. Something their parents should have prioritized over schemes and affairs. Before Vanessa could respond, a commotion erupted near the courthouse entrance. Nathaniel Donovan was being escorted in by federal agents, his wrists cuffed before him. What's happening? Vanessa gasped. Phase 4, Des replied quietly. Diana approached with her tablet. Nathaniel Donovan has been charged with wire fraud, conspiracy to commit securities fraud, and attempted flight to avoid prosecution. Bail has been denied due to flight risk. Vanessa stared at Nathaniel as he was led past. He didn't meet her eyes. You planned all this, she accused Des. Every detail. I planned for possibilities, Des corrected. Your choices determined which ones became realities. That evening, Des returned to the lake house alone. The sunset painted the water in shades of amber and gold as he sat on the deck, reviewing the day's events with Russell. Preston's facing 20 years if convicted on all counts, Russell reported. Nathaniel's looking at similar time. The prosecutor is offering Vanessa immunity if she testifies against both. Will she take it? Des asked. Russell shrugged. Self-preservation seems to be her strongest instinct. My sources say she's already providing details about Nathaniel's offshore accounts. Des nodded, unsurprised. And Preston's children? With their maternal grandparents in Boston, as arranged. Your monthly stipend to them has been processed. A silence fell between the two men as they watched the sun sink below the horizon. Was it worth it? Russell finally asked. 17 years of marriage, ending like this? Des considered the question carefully. The marriage ended 3 years ago when Vanessa began her affair. Everything since has been accounting. Cold way to look at it, Russell observed. Cold is precise, Des replied. Heat distorts judgment. As darkness settled over the lake, Des reflected on the family that had gathered here just a week earlier. Now scattered, their carefully constructed facades stripped away. Preston facing criminal charges. Nathaniel in federal custody. Camille selling assets to cover legal fees. Vanessa alone, discovering that her lover had been using her just as she had used Des. The final phase was underway, permanent severance. Not just from shared assets or family connections, but from the illusions they had maintained about who they were and what they deserved. Des had no interest in reconciliation or forgiveness. Some betrayals cut too deep for healing. Instead, he would ensure that the consequences of their choices would follow them permanently, a lifetime reminder of the mistake they made in betraying Desmond Keller. Chapter 7, Revelations. 3 months after the family's expulsion from the lake house, Des sat across from Diana Powell in her downtown Chicago office, reviewing the aftermath of what the financial press had dubbed the Woodruff implosion. Preston accepted a plea deal this morning, Diana reported, sliding a document across her desk. 8 years federal, reduced from 20. Full restitution to shareholders. Forfeiture of all illegally obtained assets. Des nodded, unsurprised. And Nathaniel? 12 years. The prosecutor was less generous with him given his prior convictions and attempted flight. Diana hesitated. Vanessa's testimony was apparently quite detailed. She portrayed herself as an unwitting participant. A thin smile crossed Des's face. Of course she did. She's filed another motion challenging the prenuptial agreement, Diana continued. Judge Keating has already indicated his inclination to uphold it, but the hearing is set for next week. She'll try to appeal to sympathy, Des predicted. Paint herself as the abandoned wife who's cold, calculating husband orchestrated a vendetta. Diana's expression remained professional, but her eyes held a glint of admiration. It would be a more compelling narrative if we didn't have recordings of her discussing plans to divorce you once she secured control of the assets. Des stood, moving to the window overlooking Michigan Avenue below. The autumn wind was stripping leaves from the trees, much as his actions had stripped away the pretenses of those who had betrayed him. Has she contacted the twins? He asked. Regularly, Diana confirmed. Though according to our sources, the conversations are strained. Olivia, in particular, has been asking difficult questions about her mother's role in Preston's schemes. Des nodded, feeling a rare twinge of regret for the children caught in the crossfire. Ensure the educational trust remains irrevocable. Whatever happens with their parents, their futures should be secure. Later that day, Des visited the lumber company's headquarters, a building his grandfather had helped construct 60 years earlier. The acting CEO, Margaret Linden, greeted him in the lobby. Mr. Keller, we've been hoping you'd visit. Her handshake was firm, her expression direct. The board would like to discuss your shareholdings. Des followed her to the boardroom, where nervous executives awaited. As the largest shareholder following Preston's asset forfeiture, Des now controlled the company's fate. Gentlemen, Des acknowledged as he took a seat. I understand you have concerns. The CFO cleared his throat. Mr. Keller, with Preston Woodruff's situation, there's considerable uncertainty about the company's direction, as you now control 42% of voting shares. 58%, Des corrected mildly. I acquired the Mitchell family's holdings this morning. A ripple of alarm passed through the room. Mr. Keller, Margaret began carefully. The employees are worried about their jobs. The company has been in the Woodruff family for generations. The company was founded by my grandfather and Vanessa's grandfather as equal partners, Des reminded them. The Woodruff side simply became more visible over time. What are your intentions? The CFO asked bluntly. Des smiled. To restore the company to profitability and ethical operation. Margaret will remain as CEO. The restructuring plan she's proposed has my full support. Relief visibly swept through the room, though Margaret studied him carefully. And your role? Silent partner, Des replied. I have no interest in day-to-day operations. My only conditions are quarterly ethical compliance reviews and the establishment of an employee profit-sharing program. As the meeting concluded, Margaret walked Des to the elevator. May I speak frankly, Mr. Keller? Des nodded. You could have destroyed this company along with Preston. Why preserve it? 300 families depend on these jobs, Des answered simply. They're not responsible for Preston's actions. Margaret considered this. That's more mercy than you've shown your wife or brother-in-law. They betrayed me personally, Des replied. The distinction matters. That evening, as Des returned to the lake house, he found an unexpected visitor waiting on the new bench he'd installed at the end of the dock. Russell approached from his security position as Des parked. She showed up an hour ago, Russell reported. Clean, no weapons, no recording devices. Said she'd wait until you returned. Des nodded. Keep your distance, but stay within sight. Camille Woodruff looked up as Des approached, her once immaculate appearance now marked by stress and hastily applied makeup. She stood, wrapping her cardigan tighter against the lake breeze. Thank you for not having me removed, she said. What do you want, Camille? Des asked, remaining standing when she sat back down. To understand, she replied. You've systematically destroyed my husband, my sister, her lover, our family's reputation. Yet you're ensuring my children's education and future. What? Des considered her question. Your children are innocent. Adults make choices. Preston made mistakes, Camille admitted. Serious ones. But this level of retribution. This isn't retribution, Des corrected. It's consequences. Preston stole from shareholders, lied to regulators, and conspired to take property that wasn't his. The legal system is handling him exactly as it should. And Vanessa? What crime warranted destroying her life? Des's expression hardened slightly. She betrayed her vows, repeatedly, while plotting to exploit legal mechanisms to take what wasn't hers. The consequences are proportionate. Camille studied him. You really are as cold as they always said. I'm precise, Des countered. If that appears cold, it's because emotions often cloud judgment. Is there any path to forgiveness? Camille asked. Any way to end this? It's already ending, Des replied. Preston and Nathaniel have accepted their pleas. Vanessa will eventually accept the prenuptial terms. The company will continue under new leadership. The natural conclusion of choices made. And us? The family. Des looked out over the lake, where his grandfather had taught him to fish decades ago. There is no family anymore, Camille. Not in the way you mean. After Camille left, Russell joined Des on the dock. Cold, he observed. Necessary, Des corrected. Forgiveness without consequence isn't mercy, it's permission. That night, Des reviewed the final documentation Diana had prepared. The divorce would be finalized next month. The company restructuring was proceeding smoothly. Preston's sentencing was scheduled for the following week. The systematic dismantling of those who had betrayed him was nearly complete. Not from emotional vengeance, but from the cold, precise calculation that had defined Des's life and success. They had mistaken his quiet nature for weakness, his privacy for vulnerability. That miscalculation had cost them everything. Chapter 8. Confrontation. The divorce hearing was scheduled for 9 a.m. at the Lake County Courthouse. Des arrived early, preferring to be seated when Vanessa entered. Diana had prepared exhaustively, though they both knew Judge Keating's preliminary rulings suggested an outcome already favoring the prenuptial agreement. Vanessa arrived with her new attorney, her third since proceedings began. She'd lost weight, and her designer clothing had been replaced by a conservative suit clearly chosen to project sympathetic vulnerability. She didn't look at Des as she took her seat. All rise, the bailiff announced as Judge Keating entered. The proceedings began with Vanessa's attorney arguing passionately that the prenuptial agreement should be invalidated due to unconscionable terms and coercive circumstances. Your Honor, he pleaded, Mrs. Keller signed this document at 25, without independent legal counsel, under pressure from her parents who feared losing family properties during their financial difficulties. Diana's rebuttal was methodical. The prenuptial agreement was drafted by Hargrove and Associates, who provided Mrs. Keller with independent counsel as documented in Exhibit C. Her signature appears on 6 separate acknowledgments of understanding. Furthermore, the terms are consistent with agreements upheld in Peterson v. Peterson and Williamson v. Williamson. Judge Keating reviewed the documents carefully before addressing the court. Having reviewed the evidence and arguments, this court finds the prenuptial agreement valid and enforceable. Mrs. Keller signed with adequate representation and clear acknowledgement of terms. The property division shall proceed as stipulated in the agreement. Vanessa's composure cracked. This is ridiculous. He manipulated everything. Mrs. Keller, the judge warned, control yourself or you'll be held in contempt. Vanessa subsided, shooting venomous glances at Des, who remained impassive. The judge continued. Regarding spousal support, the court recognizes Mr. Keller's substantial support payments to Mrs. Keller over the past 3 months, exceeding the requirements of the temporary order. Final support is set at $8,000 monthly for 3 years, as specified in the prenuptial agreement. After the judge concluded the hearing and left the bench, Vanessa approached Des, ignoring her attorney's attempts to stop her. You've won, she hissed. Is this what you wanted? To see me humiliated and penniless? You're hardly penniless, Des observed calmly. $8,000 monthly is more than most Americans earn working full-time. It's nothing compared to what we had. Vanessa's voice rose, drawing attention from others in the courtroom. What I had, Des corrected gently. You confused access with ownership. 17 years of marriage meant nothing to you. They meant everything, Des replied, his voice softening momentarily. Until I discovered they meant nothing to you. Vanessa's expression shifted, desperation replacing anger. People make mistakes, Des. I made a horrible mistake. If you just talk to me, really talk, maybe we could. No. Des interrupted, his tone final. Some things can't be undone, Vanessa. You never loved me, she accused, tears forming. A man who loved his wife couldn't do this. A man who truly loves expects loyalty in return, Des countered. I gave you everything. You conspired with your lover to take what remained. As security approached, alerted by the escalating confrontation, Vanessa made a final plea. The twins miss you. They don't understand why their Uncle Des won't see them. I speak with them weekly, Des revealed. They understand more than you think. Outside the courthouse, reporters waited, alerted to the high-profile divorce. Des declined comment. But Vanessa seized the opportunity, tears streaming convincingly as she portrayed herself as the victim of a calculating, vindictive husband. Diana joined Des in the car. She's playing to public sympathy. It won't affect the legal outcome, but it might make social circles uncomfortable for you. I've never valued social approval, Des reminded her. Later that day, Des received an unexpected call from Preston's attorney. Mr. Keller, my client would like to meet with you before his sentencing. He says it's important. Des considered the request. When and where? Tomorrow at the Federal Detention Center. He's permitted visitors from 2 to 4 p.m. The following afternoon, Des was escorted to a visiting room where Preston waited, the orange jumpsuit and institutional surroundings a stark contrast to his former commanding presence. Thank you for coming, Preston began, his voice subdued. Des simply nodded, waiting. I wanted to see you face to face, Preston continued. To understand why. Was it just the lake house? Because if you'd told us you were the actual owner. It wasn't about the lake house, Des interrupted. It was about the systematic way you and your family treated me as an outsider while benefiting from my generosity. It was about Vanessa's betrayal with Nathaniel. It was about your conspiracy to take what wasn't yours. Preston's expression hardened. So this elaborate revenge, destroying my career, my reputation, sending me to prison, was because your feelings were hurt. Des almost smiled. You still don't understand. This isn't revenge, Preston. It's accountability. You committed actual crimes. You're facing actual legal consequences. The fact that I stopped protecting you from those consequences isn't vengeance. It's justice. You could have exposed just me, Preston argued. Why drag Vanessa into it? Why Nathaniel? They made their choices, Des replied simply. Vanessa chose to betray her vows. Nathaniel chose to conspire with her. You all chose to try to force me out of property that was legally mine. Consequences followed. Preston leaned forward. 8 years, Des. 8 years of my life. My children will be adults when I get out. Perhaps you should have considered them before committing securities fraud, Des suggested. I'm asking for mercy, Preston said finally. If not for me, then for my family. For the twins. The twins will be taken care of, Des assured him. Their education, their futures. I've ensured they won't suffer for your mistakes. But you'll show no mercy to the rest of us. Des stood, indicating the meeting was over. The time for mercy was before you conspired against me. Actions have consequences, Preston. You're experiencing yours. That evening, as Des drove back to the lake house, he received a call from Russell. We have a situation, his friend reported. Nathaniel Donovan has escaped federal custody. Des's grip tightened on the steering wheel. How? Medical transport to hospital. 2 guards down, 1 critical. He had outside help. Vanessa? Possibly. Her car was spotted near the hospital this morning. Des nodded to himself. Increase security at the lake house. And alert Diana. We may need to accelerate the final transfers. As Des turned onto the private road leading to the lake house, he noticed a car parked haphazardly among the trees. He slowed, texting Russell. Possible intruder. Blue sedan hidden off North Access Road. Russell's reply was immediate. Stay in your vehicle. I'm 3 minutes out. Des considered his options. If Nathaniel had indeed escaped and come here, he was likely desperate and dangerous. But Des had never been one to hide from confrontation. He parked in the circular drive and approached the house cautiously. The new security system showed no breaches, but the lakeside had multiple access points through the woods. As Des unlocked the front door, he sensed rather than heard movement behind him. He turned to find Nathaniel Donovan emerging from the shadows, a pistol leveled at Des's chest. Inside, Nathaniel ordered, his usual smooth demeanor replaced by feverish intensity. No alarms, no calls. Des complied, calculating. Russell would arrive soon, but Nathaniel was clearly unstable. You've destroyed everything, Nathaniel accused as they entered the great room. My future, my freedom. You did that yourself, Des replied calmly. The fraud charges weren't my creation. Nathaniel laughed bitterly. But you made sure they stuck, didn't you? All those records, those recordings, you were building a case for years. Prudent business practice, Des said mildly. Documenting misconduct. Where's Vanessa? Nathaniel demanded. I have no idea, Des answered truthfully. We're divorced as of this morning. She was supposed to meet me here, Nathaniel muttered, agitation growing. She promised she'd bring money, passports. Des Des understood then. She used you again. Promised escape, then left you exposed. She wouldn't, Nathaniel insisted, but doubt clouded his eyes. She testified against you for immunity, Des reminded him. Detailed your financial crimes to save herself. Why would she risk everything now to help you escape? Nathaniel's hand trembled. Stop talking. Des noticed movement through the lakeside windows. Russell, positioning himself. You're not leaving the country, Des said calmly. The question is whether you leave here in custody or a body bag. You think I won't shoot? Nathaniel challenged. I think you're smarter than that, Des replied. Assault charges can be bargained down. Attempted murder of a man with my connections? That's life without parole. Before Nathaniel could respond, glass shattered as Russell fired through the window. Nathaniel crumpled, the bullet finding his shoulder. Des moved immediately, kicking the gun away as Russell burst through the doors. Within minutes, local police and federal agents swarmed the property. Nathaniel was taken into custody, his brief escape adding years to his sentence. As an agent took Des's statement, his phone chimed with a text from an unknown number. I never meant for this to happen. Please, Des. We need to talk. V. Des deleted the message without responding. The final phase was nearly complete. One last confrontation remained. Chapter 9, Resolution. 1 year after the family's expulsion from the lake house, Des sat in his office overlooking Chicago's skyline. The lumber company, now restructured under Margaret Linden's leadership, had recovered completely, its stock price higher than before Preston's legal troubles. Diana entered with a thin folder. It's done, she announced, placing the documents before him. The last of Vanessa's appeals has been rejected. The prenuptial agreement stands in its entirety. Des nodded, unsurprised. And Preston's appeal? Denied last week. He'll serve the full 8 years. Diana hesitated. Camille has filed for divorce. Apparently, she discovered additional affairs during discovery. The twins. Thriving at boarding school in Massachusetts. Olivia has applied early to MIT. Samuel is showing promise in architectural design, like his great-grandfather. Des allowed himself a small smile at that. Good. And Nathaniel? 15 years with no possibility of parole, Diana reported. The escape attempt and assault charges eliminated any leniency. He's in maximum security in Colorado. Vanessa? Diana's expression tightened slightly. Working at a boutique in Evanston. The owner is an old sorority sister. She's been trying to contact you through various channels. I'm aware, Des acknowledged. She calls the office weekly. Do you intend to speak with her? Des considered the question. No. That chapter is closed. Later that evening, Des returned to the lake house, which he'd kept despite offers to purchase it. The property had been in his wife's family for generations before financial mismanagement nearly lost it. Despite everything, Des couldn't bring himself to sell it. Some connections ran too deep to sever completely. As he prepared dinner, the security system alerted him to a vehicle approaching. The camera feed showed a familiar BMW. Des sighed, texting Russell, "She's here. Want me to intercept?" Russell replied immediately, "No, it's time." Des continued cooking as Vanessa rang the doorbell, then knocked, then finally called his cell phone. "I know you're in there, Des," she said when he answered. "Please. 5 minutes." Des opened the door, but didn't invite her in. Vanessa looked different, the designer clothes and perfect styling replaced by simpler attire and less polished presentation. Her eyes held a weariness that hadn't been there before. "Thank you," she said quietly. 5 minutes, Des reminded her. Vanessa nodded. "I've been trying to reach you for months. Your secretary blocks my calls. Diana returns my letters." "By my instruction," Des confirmed. "I understand why," Vanessa acknowledged. "I betrayed you, conspired against you. I've had a year to reflect on my choices, and I have no excuses." Des said nothing, waiting. "I didn't come to ask for forgiveness," Vanessa continued, "or reconciliation. I know that's impossible." "Then why are you here?" Des asked. Vanessa took a deep breath. "To tell you that you were right. About everything. Nathaniel was using me for access to what he thought was my money. Preston was embezzling company funds. The entire family was exploiting your generosity while treating you as an outsider." Des leaned against the doorframe. "I know all this. I've always known." "I see that now," Vanessa admitted. "You were 3 steps ahead of us all along. I mistook your quiet nature for passivity, your privacy for weakness. A common misconception, Des observed. You could have just divorced me, Vanessa pointed out, taken your property and moved on. Instead, you orchestrated this elaborate punishment. Not punishment, Des corrected. Consequences. Everything that happened to Preston was the legal result of his actual crimes. Everything that happened to Nathaniel was the result of his fraud and subsequent escape attempt. Everything that happened to you was stipulated in the prenuptial agreement you signed. With surgical precision, Vanessa noted, you dismantled our entire lives. Lives built on deception and exploitation, Des reminded her. Vanessa looked out at the lake, where evening light danced on the water. I love this place. My grandfather built it with yours. I know, Des said, his voice softening slightly. It's why I kept it, despite everything. The twins ask about you, Vanessa mentioned. They don't blame you for what happened with Preston. They shouldn't. He made his choices. Vanessa met his eyes directly. Did you ever love me, Des? Really love me? Des considered the question carefully. Completely. For 15 years. When did it end? The first time you invited Nathaniel to our bed. Des answered simply. Love requires trust. Trust, once broken, cannot be repaired. Vanessa nodded, tears forming. You never raised your voice. Never showed anger. Even now, you're completely composed. Anger clouds judgment, Des explained. This was never about emotion. That's what makes it so terrifying, Vanessa admitted. You destroyed us with the calm precision of a surgeon removing cancer. Des checked his watch. Your 5 minutes are up. Vanessa straightened, collecting herself. I'm moving to Arizona next month. Fresh start. I won't contact you again. Good luck, Vanessa. As she turned to leave, Vanessa paused. Was it worth it? Destroying everyone who betrayed you? Des considered her question. It wasn't about worth. It was about principle. Betrayal has consequences. Always. After she left, Des returned to the kitchen, resuming his dinner preparation. His phone buzzed with a text from Russell. All clear? Yes, Des replied. It's finished. Later, as Des sat on the deck watching stars emerge over the lake, he reflected on the events of the past year. The systematic dismantling of those who had betrayed him was complete. Preston would spend nearly a decade in prison. Nathaniel would spend longer. Vanessa had lost the wealth and status she'd valued over loyalty. Des felt no joy in their downfall, no satisfaction in their suffering. Only the quiet certainty that justice had been served. Cold, precise, and complete. Some would call him ruthless. Others, vindictive. Des considered himself merely consistent. Loyalty rewarded with protection. Betrayal met with consequences. The simplicity of this principle had guided his life, separating those worthy of his trust from those who would learn the cost of violating it. As the lake breeze stirred the trees his grandfather had planted, Des raised his whiskey in a silent toast to the man who had taught him the most important lesson of his life. Never forgive betrayal. Never forget disloyalty. And never let sentiment overrule principle. The vacation home stood as it always had, solid against the elements. Only now, as the deed had always specified, there was but one sole owner. This is where our story comes to an end. Share your thoughts in the comments section. Thanks for your time. If you enjoy this story, please subscribe to this channel. Click on the video you see on the screen, and I will see you there.